Your final paper for this semester is a research paper, and I want to go over the guidelines, especially emphasize some things because it's very easy to get this assignment wrong. I realize some students are more comfortable with research writing than they are actually with other types of writing, especially maybe more personal types. A research paper is more objective. You don't put your opinion in it. You don't use I anywhere, and it's very important to use good source material. And for that reason, I'm requiring that your sources come from the GNTC resources held in the library, the databases and so forth. This is the main way that students have gone wrong in the past with this paper, is using material that, while it may be good support material, as far as just trying to help an individual understand maybe a particular piece, it is not considered of academic quality. All right, so by using the GNTC resources that are held in the library, you are guaranteed to be using high quality information. So let's look at the guidelines pretty quickly, then we're going to take a look at the sample paper, and then I'm going to show you how to effectively use the GNTC library resources. All right, so we're going to begin with length. And again, the length, I designated a length because you can certainly underwrite and overwrite with this particular assignment. So what the word requirement does is, and of course, if you're using a Microsoft Office product, it counts the words for you, and it's in the bottom left-hand corner. But by giving you a word requirement, what this does is indicate the level of depth and focus. Because most of these topics, honestly, you could write and looking at an author and his or her past and history and the times in which he or she lived, and then looking at what the outcome was in the writing. You could, books have been written about this kind of thing, right? So we're going to say between 1,000 and 1,250 words. A little bit longer is fine. A little bit shorter is fine. A lot shorter means you've not done enough research, and a lot longer means you're not controlling your research, okay? And that your thesis may be too broad. So try and hit it within that target area. And that, by the way, does include your works cited page, your bibliography. All right, topic, you need to choose one author, poet, or playwright for those of you in English 1102. I've got two courses who are doing the same, literature courses doing the same assignment. Choose one of them, and then of course you're going to write about the author, poet, playwright, and then you're going to write about the specific work that we studied. Now, for those of you in English 1102, you also had the option of, there was an assigned list of poems from which to choose, that on which to do your poetry analysis, your last paper, and you can certainly do that if you prefer, because you've already worked closely with the particular poem. So if you want to do that, you can certainly do that. Okay. Now notice that the focus of the paper and your thesis will be about how some element of the author or poet or playwright's life influences his or her work. And so what you're looking at is, you're going to first dig a little bit into their biography, a little bit about their lives, and the times in which they wrote. And sometimes the times are just as important as what happens to the particular person. For example, using an example from a play, Susan Glaspell writing about writing trifles. Susan Glaspell was writing in the early 1900s at a time when women did not have the same rights as they currently have, and that definitely supports a lot of what happens in the story, right? So if you in the story of the backstory of the play, so that kind of context can give you a focus for this paper, if that makes sense. All right, notice you must use, this is a requirement, 3 to 5 separate sources. It's fine with me, by the way, if you have more than 5, however many it takes, okay? You can't have less than 3. The first source, of course, is the work itself. So if you choose to do, for example, Ernest Hemingway's The Snows of Kilimanjaro, for those of you in English 2130, that's the work, all right? So that's the first source, is the work itself. The second source must be a biographical source. And you can definitely have more than one biographical source, that's fine, but you must have at least one. And then finally, you must have at least one critical essay. And critical, you may not be familiar with that term, but critical does not mean criticizing. It simply means someone with of some academic standing, someone who has a background in researching the person, their lives, and so forth. They're credentialed usually, which means they have at least a master's, if not a PhD. So they have some authority with which to write. And so a critical essay doesn't mean it's criticizing the piece. It means it's examining, it's analyzing the piece. So all of the sources except the work that you chose, right, must come from the GNTC library resources. This is very important. Please understand this. And this is the video, by the way, explaining it. You cannot make above a 60. So if I see that you just got on Google and Googled some information and put it in a paper, the paper cannot make above that's the highest grade it can make, is a 60, because you've not met this one requirement. And again, I've established this requirement because so many students in the past have used information from, say, SparkNotes, okay, or Schmoop.com, if you're familiar with that, or even Course Hero. And those are wonderful resources and references when you're just learning. But let me tell you, they're written by, most of them are written by students who are working on their master's degrees, okay? They get paid to write these, and sometimes the information is solid and sometimes it's not, and it's not considered of academic quality as far as working it into an academic research paper. All right, so we're just going to cut that short and have you look at the information in the GNTC databases. Please look at the typed format. Again, some of you are not putting titles on your papers. I haven't counted off before. This final paper I will. So please follow the correct format. You need double space between your lines and so forth. We've used the same format throughout the semester, so please adhere to it at this point. All right, you do need a title, and the title shouldn't be research paper, and the title should not be the title of your work itself. It's whatever comment you want to make. The title should be an indicator of what the content of the paper. You do need to have a clear thesis. Remember that the thesis is not a subject. Okay, a subject is Ernest Hemingway's The Snows of Kilimanjaro. The thesis is the point that you want to make about The Snows of Kilimanjaro, okay, in Ernest Hemingway's life. This is important too. Please do not, you don't need filler, you don't need to summarize the plot, what happens, that kind of thing. You only include because this paper really is still pretty short for a research paper. It's not very lengthy. It's probably about 3 type pages. You don't need to summarize what happens in the poem, the play, or the short story. That's unnecessary, okay? You don't need that paragraph or 2 that tells, because I'm your reader for this paper, and obviously I know the work, so you don't have to tell me what happens. You only pull out, and it's very important that you do work closely with the text. Some of you are still not using direct quotations. It will count off this time. If you do not pull in specific lines, whether they're lines of poetry or actual passages from the short story, if you do not include that in your paper, because that's one of the most effective ways to write. If English teachers tell you to show rather than tell, that's what we're talking about. It's not enough just to say something. You have to prove how it's true by providing that evidence from maybe your critical essay or 2 that you've read, as well as from the text itself, okay? So that you only use references to the plot to support what you want to say about your, whatever your thesis is. All right. Documentation, of course, we're using MLA documentation, Modern Language Association. I know some of you in English 1101, because when I teach English 1101, I teach APA style documentation. And by the way, there are quite a few different styles. There are 4 main ones. MLA, which has to do with literature, the arts, humanities, and then APA, American Psychological Association, which has to do with social sciences, and it's got some variations from the formats in APA and MLA. Then there's the Chicago Style Manual. Chicago Style Manual is usually used for master's theses. It's used if you are going to submit a particular article for publication. Most publications use a Chicago Style Manual. Turabian style is another form that's used in academia, especially at the upper levels and in colleges if you're working on your PhD or so forth. So please be aware there are quite a few different documentation styles. Because this is a literature course, we're using MLA, the Modern Language Association. I've included a couple of links that should serve as review for you, as well as a little quick crash course video in MLA documentation. Your documentation needs to be there, and it needs to be accurate for you to do well on this paper. And one of the things, though, that I, am willing to do is, obviously in 1102, it's required that you give me a draft, since this course is also about writing. It's about writing about literature specifically. I require you to upload a draft. For those of you in English 2130, it's not required, but it's strongly recommended that you send me a draft. It's your option by a specific date so that I can review it. And that's one of the things I'm going to check for is your documentation correct? Are there any plagiarized passages? And normally when students plagiarize, it's unintentional. It's just they don't understand the rules. For example, one of the biggest rules is that you have to document information that's paraphrased. So even if you put something in your own words, if you didn't need it before you read the text, whatever it is, you still got to document it. And by document it, of course, we mean in the paper itself. You should have a parenthetical documentation, also known as in-text citations. And then at the end of the paper in your bibliography, and in MLA documentation style, we call that page the works cited. These works are cited, actually used in building this paper. Hopefully, one of the prerequisites for both these courses was passing English 1101, so hopefully you're familiar with this. Always remember, though, we've got, one of the menu options in Blackboard is NetTutor, and NetTutor has a writing center, and all you have to do, it's free of charge to all, the school pays for it. It's free of charge to all students, and all you have to do is sort of upload a paper and give them a day or two and tell them what you want help with, and they will help you, okay? I have my students who use this find it to be an invaluable resource. Of course, that means you've got to draft early, and those of you who are in the habit of doing all this work at the last minute, it's not paying off for you, honestly. For most of you, very few of us can really get away with especially more complicated assignments, trying to do it at the last minute, so that would be a requirement. This paragraph here, I've included a PowerPoint in the folder that talks about when to use paraphrase, summary, and direct quotations to avoid plagiarism. Again, you still have to document whether you summarize something in your own words, you paraphrase it, or you directly quote. All three of them, direct quotations, of course, require quotation marks. Otherwise, that's another form of plagiarism. If you copy word for word and you do not put quotation marks around the information that you copied, even if you document it, it's still plagiarizing, because what you've done is presented somebody else's words as your own, okay? Normally, though, you don't want to rely purely on direct quotations, okay? You want to summarize some of the information and so forth. One of the guidelines for this course, and it's kind of hard to tell, but no more than 25% of your information should be directly quoted. The rest should be either summarized or paraphrased. But again, you must use lines from the work to support your points. And if you quote directly, put that in quotation marks. Then diction, what diction means, we want to emphasize not being too informal or casual or conversational. So avoid using YOU, because that's directly addressing the audience, which is conversational. Avoid using too many contractions. isn't, wasn't, couldn't, shouldn't, wouldn't, and so forth, because those are considered informalities. Abbreviations avoid and so forth, unless we're talking about your formats, your documentation formats, in which case abbreviations in some cases are appropriate. All right, here's our schedule. This week, of course, next week is spring break, so you don't have to, please take a break if you need it, but some students I know actually use spring break if they're in town. They get started on their work to get it finished. That's totally up to you, because you'll have no assignments next week, but things will be due the following week, not this paper. In week 14, there will be a Safe Assign Dropbox, and the draft of the paper is due by April 23rd. You have a good long time to do this. Please don't put it off. You'll get my feedback available in 2 days, and then the final paper is due the last week of class, and this is actually the last day of class, Tuesday, April 30th. So what's going to happen is in week 14, you will have the test will open at the end of that week and be open through the 30th, okay, to give me time to grade everything, because Blackboard shuts down that Friday, okay. I think it's May the 3rd, so you won't have access to it. I can see things, but you won't have access to it because the grades are due the following week. And so anyway, please be aware that you've got to get your work in on time on this one. Okay? All right, let's move from this then to the sample paper I've included. I don't really like going over what you can read yourselves, but I do want to make certain points. I included notes. Now, this paper is not perfect, and there are lots of things that could be revised about it, but this is an actual student paper that I'm using with her permission. This was a dual enrollment student from several years ago, and she chose to write about a piece that was studied in English 1102, which is a poem entitled Those Winter Sundays by Robert Hayden. Now, what I wanted to point out here is this is sort of a model, a way that you can construct your own paper after you do your research. Because remember, you've got to weave in the poet, the author, the playwright's elements of their lives and or times, with and see how that is reflected in the particular work that we studied. So in this case, just taking a quick look, Robert Hayden, who wrote Those Winter Sundays, had a very complicated life. All through his life, he felt as if he did not belong anywhere. Now, this information is summarized from her biographical information, what she read. Notice she's got her in-text citation here following her summary to indicate that the information that came before this came from this source, even though she put it in her own words, okay? All through his life, he felt as if he did not belong anywhere. He was always misunderstood and did not participate in normal activities as a child. The situation with his parents was also very unusual. Now, notice that what good introductions do is they start very generally, and then they lead down to the main point the author wants to make. And so here's her thesis. His poem, so remember, that's a requirement. You have to talk about the work itself. Those Winter Sundays directly describes this relationship that he shared with his fathers, yes, more than one, and with the world. Okay, that's her thesis. Everything else is going to be about that. And then here's her in-text citation about the paraphrased information. Okay. Here, the second paragraph, notice that this is not directly quoted. She basically gives a very brief biographical summary of his life. And here's the in-text citation at the end that indicates all of this information came from this source, even though the author wrote it in her own words. Next one, it's more information that she paraphrased in her own words. And all of this comes from Hayden, Robert, that particular source. Then this is her comment, and that leads into a discussion of the poem and how it relates to what she has said before. You'll notice I've got comments here on the side. Now the last thing that I want you to see, she directly quotes from that means a lowercase l means line, line period 9. This means two L's mean more than one line. Okay, so LL period lines 11 through 12. So when you're dealing with poetry, that's actually how you use it. She's got another source right here. Notice that she's directly quoting some lines from the poem in this particular, in her paper. And then we go to her works cited page, and this is where readers can actually scan through here, see which sources she used in her paper, and if I wanted to go and look these up, this is how I would do it. Notice that they're alphabetized. Notice that they use a hanging indentation, which means the first line of each entry sticks out. Okay, because she has more than one that begins with Hayden, then the way that you decide what goes next, if you're alphabetizing, is here we've got a number, where here we have a T. So that would go next, and then here's her last two. And if you have more than one author, this is how you handle it: Mullen, Harriet, and Stephen Yenser. The really good news about using the GNTC resources is that they will set up your bibliographic entries for you. So I'm going to show you that now. On your course homepage, and this is the English 2130 homepage, I've included links to our GNTC library services. So all you need to do is select one of those links to launch to get you into the GNTC library. This should not be a problem. I've had other dual enrollment students who have used this without any type of problem. So when you're on this homepage, and I'm just going to pick perhaps, since we were talking about Robert Hayden and that particular poem, Those Winter Sundays, I'm gonna pick Robert Hayden, and so I'm going to show you the easiest ways to find information. You can the particular search engine that drives it's kind of like the card catalog used to be, when you would go into a library and try and find something. But the particular search engine that helps you find information is Primo. You can find it here, you can find it here, okay? But I want to start with Databases A to Z because I want to show you this particular resource, which is a collection. It's called Credo Reference. So we're going to go to C, scroll down, and then select Credo Reference. And it's, if you think about like encyclopedias and biographical information, summaries, okay, I'm going to pick an account and go through. Dictionaries and so forth. It's just this huge, vast database of references and resources. And so we're going to start there to find our biographical information. We may find more than that, I don't know. And sorry, this can be a little bit of a slow. All right, so you can start a background search, and we could actually narrow it down if we wanted to language and literature, so why don't we do that? And then we're going to try and find information about Robert Hayden. Okay, and here are our options. And remember that anything that's in light blue is a hyperlink. I'm sure you know that, but if you select it, it will open up more information. So I've got the Oxford Companion to Modern Poetry. I've got Encyclopedia of American Literature. I've got Encyclopedia of African American Literature, African American Almanac. Lots to choose from here. All right. So I want to find biographical information. And notice that there are 312 options, which is a lot. So I'm going to select this one. And it's going to open up for me the actual entry. This is an encyclopedia, which is basically background information. If you think about Wikipedia, this is kind of the what Wikipedia is, and it's a great place. I use Wikipedia. I know that you do probably, to get a background information on something. The only difficulty with Wikipedia is they're comprised of what's called wikis, W-I-K-I-S. And wikis are public sites. They're open to the public to actually edit. You can edit it, I can edit it. And then at some point, and I know that it's gotten more sophisticated. It used to be within 24 hours, information that was incorrect would be taken down. But so I think they've gotten, the algorithm has changed somewhat. But anyway, it's not considered. They're not considered academic sources. So we're not going to talk any more about that right now, but just be aware that, and there are some courses that will allow you to use Wikipedia in your writing and whatever. In this course, we're gonna stick with the information, the GNTC databases. All right, Credo reference, and so here are several backgrounds about his. It's a couple of paragraphs, so maybe there's something in there that I want to include. If I do, notice that there is a citation tool. All right. So all I have to do is select citation. Now it's defaulting because it does alphabetical order to APA. I want MLA. All right, and then all you have to do is copy. Well, down here it'll do it for you. Select copy. It'll copy it to your clipboard. Then you just paste it. And then in the paper itself, all that you would put in the parentheses, if you didn't mention the authors' names in the text, are Rollison and Boswell. Okay, so easy peasy, right? Let's go back. Again, let's see if there's something a little bit meatier here as far as giving me more information. I don't know. We'll try this one. Yeah, so notice this is a bit more exhaustive. There's more information here that I could possibly use. So this could be my biographical source, all right? Because it's information about his life. And again, if I use anything from this, whether I directly quote or put it in my own words, I would still have to cite it. I would have to give credit, right? So here's my citation tool. Again, go to MLA and then copy. Use this copy feature and paste it into my works cited page. And remember that you normally build your works cited page first, and then it's whatever comes first here is what appears in the text itself as your in-text citation. All right. So now you probably could find critical articles using Credo reference, but I want to go back and show you. Primo is going to give you more, but let me show you basically. So that can be both a good thing and a bad thing, right? I'm going to go back to the home page here and select Primo. And again, this is the big search engine that goes through all of the different sources. And I'm going to do a query. Let me move this a little bit. And I want to find information about Hayden, those winter Sundays. So I'm going to, and here's the thing about research, you've got to be willing to try different things, and if one thing doesn't work out, let's see, everything, books, ebooks, electronic resources. I want electronic resources. And I've got 4 results. Video, the ethics of narrative essays on literature and theory. All right, so that doesn't look like that's going to be helpful to me. So let's go back and just do Robert Hayden and see what we get. In this case, I've got 58 results, okay? Poetry in America, those winter Sundays. This is a video. And you may have to do a little bit of, if you find this online, then yes, you could use a film if it included some information that was useful. Essays on poetry. All right, so maybe there's something here. Now, it's a book, but there's online access, 20th century literature. So over here, I want to show you how you can refine your results. Full text online, so select that. And then under format, I actually want looks like I only have books here that I can work with, so and we can leave that. Subject, creator. Now maybe if you care about the date, like you want recent material, you can change that here. And then once you select what you want here, I really wanted articles, but I don't see that there are any written, so maybe I'm going to have to look at chapters in a book, because some of these don't look relevant. I'm going to refine, and then here's this video. You can go to the video. And again, online access, and you continue. Now this is where I want to show you, if you actually use the information, again, there's a citation tool. Select that. Now remember, this is only for information you use to build your paper. If you read something and don't use it in the paper, and I know you know this probably, but I just want to make sure, I copy the citation to clipboard. Now this is giving me APA, I want MLA. So it will change it, and now all I have to do is select copy the citation. And that's if I use this information, okay? You should find plenty of information in these resources. I want to show you, though, a couple of other options. We're going to go to Databases A to Z. And under L, Literature Online, and then the Literature Resource Center is one of my favorites. If you select that, and again, this is under Databases A to Z, it kind of narrows down. It takes a chunk of stuff out of Primo, right? And it's in this particular database. And here I want to browse. Let's see if Works Search will do this for me. I didn't do it in advance. I didn't do a trial run, so I don't know. But let's see what happens. I think it's just going to give me the poem. It's not necessarily going to give me any, but we'll try it. Oh, criticism. Here we go. Living is the Thing. A biographical sketch to inform his critical account of Hayden's poetry. So it sounds like this essay, okay, notice where this is literary criticism. This essay is going to tie together the poem and the and his background. I'm going to select that and then once again show you. All right, here's the essay, and then where's my citation tool? They've changed the. You can email it to yourself. You can download this. Linked. Oh, here we go. Here's the citation tool. Select that. Okay, and I want MLA 9th edition, and then copy. Okay. Should I use this information? So again, notice that this simplifies for you. It does several things by using the GNTC databases. It simplifies your search, okay? And it guarantees, because especially if you were going to do something like a Google search, you would get so much information, and a lot of it again is not considered the appropriate academic level. So this kind of weeds through things for you and then it also does the citation tools for the actual citations for you. So should you have any questions, please do not hesitate to email me. I can also set up WebEx meetings with you if you want to go over any of your work. But hopefully this will be enough to get you started on this research paper.